So continuing some thoughts on freedom of speech and so forth. So what is that? What exactly is freedom of speech and why is it important? So I don't think there's any ultimate reason why humans exist. I mean, I take a much more, empirical approach to it. Is that, humans, we're just like another beast on planet Earth. We're the only difference is that we've become the apex predator. We're the most intelligent Homo sapiens. We can create weapons and guns and stuff like that, and therefore we've essentially conquered and dominated the planet. And now there's nothing that we humans are afraid of except other humans. Now, as a consequence, I think in today's world, everyone has kind of a lack of purpose. And this is why we need philosophy more than ever, because philosophy tells us what we should care about and what we shouldn't care about, or philosophy is having the guts to posit your own values for yourself. And because like right now the whole cult of utilitarianism and modern society is how can we make the most money most efficiently, sleep and rest the least, and become as machine-like as possible. It's essentially the gist of modern society. And so essentially we all follow more or less the religion of capitalism and the religion of consumerism, and also the religion of productivity. And the chief end game is economic, and it's essentially based on monetary concerns. Now, I'm of the thought and belief that actually maybe a better way to think about life and treat life, how's it going, man? Is that we should think about life kind of more of like children. Like, to me, the best life is a life full of spirited play, where we don't kind of take things too seriously, and we're essentially like grown-ass kids. I think this is what the ancient Greeks were. They're a bunch of kids, and even Heraclitus has a nice saying, is that like time and eternity is a child playing chess or checkers, or time is a game beautifully played by children, or something like that, or something like humanity is like a child building a sandcastle on the seashore just to have the waves and the waters to keep flowing it back and forth as much as possible. So essentially one of my theses is too much focus on the moral and ethical things and too much focus on modern contemporary issues is actually hindering humanity from going forward. And I think perhaps one of my principal strengths is I'm actually quite naive, like childlike naivete. I'm very curious like a kid, and I'm actually really I'm very suspicious too. So as a consequence, no real modern knowledge is satisfactory to me, and it's this hunger for like deeper truths or deeper knowledges, which is kind of what drives me. And I don't think that there's a ultimate truth or knowledge, nor should they, and that's why I think I treat philosophy kind of more like a game. It's like a fun game that's kind of grounded also in reality. So nowadays I believe more in flesh, I believe more in physiology, I believe more in physics than abstract notions, whatever. And actually I'm starting to get a renewed insight into sociology, which was actually my undergrad major, is that a lot of what we understand and observe in today's world, I think could be well analyzed from a sociological lens. So, even issues about race, sociological issue, because race is socially constructed. Almost everything in modern society is socially constructed. And I think what we moderns fail to observe is we fail to think about human physiology, like pertaining to the body and growth. We have silly notions about nutrition. There's too much, like, I think, too much advocacy for animal rights and not eating meat and stuff like that, and nourishment. Kind of the moral and ethical parts about eating animals is kind of holding us back. And also the fact that Christian morality says thou shalt not be a free thinker and an individual, and thou shalt be humble. That's also holding us back. So a lot of like religious thoughts is holding us back. Also, some other things that are holding us back is too much belief in, like, and this is the funny thing too, is when people are not no longer religious, right? A lot of my friends are quite secular. Then they kind of start to shift towards like mysticism, like, where it's like, spiritual, other world, kind of like, kind of like the weird like tarot card readings. Like, people get really into that kind of stuff. And so I don't think anyone actually has the courage or the guts to be really, really empirical anymore. And as a consequence, our search for knowledge and deeper truths of knowledge and the potential of human greatness is kind of quite hindered. And even with social media, photography, I have yet actually met another human in the flesh who I found supremely impressive in terms of their approach both to the artistry, their online persona, real life persona, and just life in general. So far, everyone I've met has been like kind of more or less a disappointment to me. And I don't mean to say that in a bitter way. It's just kind of more of like, it's a good opportunity, because rather than striving to find my equals, which is like inter pares, Nietzsche's notion, I may be interested maybe trying to transform myself, Eric Kim, into my own idealized version of myself, and perhaps to use myself as a blueprint for maybe what my personal ideals are for humanity and for so forth. Now, it's tricky because I don't want people to become me. I want people to become themselves. And I guess my only encouragement is I want more people to be more free-spirited, free-thinking, and actually exercise their personal liberty a bit more, and to live life with less fear, less concerns, and so forth. So taking it back to the liberty question, so another thought that I had recently was perhaps actually happiness is kind of the red herring in the room, where we think happiness, eudaimonianism, like human flourishing, EU, eudaimonia means good. Daimonia, I think it means like inner daemon or a spirit or a human spirit, soul, whatever. I think maybe that might be the red herring. Actually, perhaps maybe what we, like a better goal to aim towards is free-spiritedness, individuality, and personal liberty. Maybe it might be much more interesting. And it's actually interesting because I've lived in so many different parts of the world, and when I was living in different places in the world, I was actually a lot more afraid to freely express my opinion, because I'm afraid of cyber spying. So for example, when I was in like Singapore or Vietnam, truth be told, there are some times where I didn't really say what was really, really on my mind, because low-key I was kind of afraid of what might happen to me and stuff like that. Whereas here in the States, I can say everything I want. So America is not like technically the best place to live in so many regards, but at least if we have the maximum amount of liberty, which is typically my apex goal.